The story of the flood is not just a religious account, but one of the most enigmatic narratives in human history. What really happened before this great catastrophe? What has been hidden from historical records? And why do so many cultures around the world share similar myths about a global destruction event? The Bible and ancient Jewish traditions speak of a world that existed before the flood, a world that had been irreversibly corrupted. But few dare to explore the details of this dark period in human history. What caused this world to be sentenced to destruction? Who or what inhabited the earth at that time? What kind of knowledge was lost forever in the waters that swallowed entire civilizations? In this video, we will dive into the hidden accounts of the pre-flood humanity. We will explore the sins, monstrosities, and unknown forces that shaped this forgotten era. If you are also curious about the mysteries of the ancient world, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. The mysterious world before the flood, the forbidden topic. The narrative in the book of Genesis begins with the creation of humanity through Adam and Eve, followed by the multiplication of human beings and the emergence of original sin. With the mistake committed in the Garden of Eden, humanity began to face its own corruptions and transgressions, which intensified over time. Even after the fall, biblical accounts describe a society that drifted further and further away from divine principles. Many of the mysteries and secrets of this period remain hidden from most people today, being investigated only by those dedicated to deep scriptural studies. In addition to biblical narratives, scholars and researchers turn to ancient Jewish writings to shed light on these events, expanding the understanding of the knowledge passed down through generations by the ancient Jews. Among the remarkable events of this period are accounts of the presence of fallen angels, demonic entities, and practices associated with magic and sorcery, highlighting the growing chaos and moral corruption of humanity. These events would ultimately lead to a scenario of such profound degradation that it resulted in the Great Flood in Noah's time, a milestone in biblical history symbolizing both divine judgment and the opportunity for a new beginning. According to the Holy Scriptures, the first lineage to inhabit the world was the descendants of Adam, which branched out among others through the lineage of Cain. Marked by his transgression, Cain was a man of wicked conduct in the eyes of the Lord, and his descendants followed a path of vanity and estrangement from God. Although some of his descendants excelled as musicians, craftsmen, and masters of various skills, tradition holds that, for the most part, Cain's lineage did not serve the God of Adam. However, some scholars suggest the possibility that certain members of this lineage may have maintained their faith. The prevailing consensus, however, is that Cain's descendants inherited his transgressive nature, reflecting the cruel act of their progenitor, who committed the first murder in human history by coldly killing his brother Abel. Beyond Cain's lineage, there was also the lineage of Seth, Adam's youngest son, considered his true spiritual heir. Unlike his brother's lineage, Seth's descendants initially remained faithful to God, calling upon and glorifying his name. From this lineage arose the first prophet of humanity, Enoch, a righteous man who lived in the world before the flood. Enoch preached and prophesied against the corruption of that time, warning of the consequences of turning away from God. Although Seth's lineage maintained its purity and devotion for a long period, it eventually also succumbed to corruption, giving in to sin and straying from the divine path much like Cain's descendants. The Holy Scriptures in the book of Genesis chapter 6 recount that the lineages of Cain and Seth, both descendants of Adam, eventually intermingled over time. This event contributed to the increasing corruption of humanity, one of the key factors that led to the Great Flood. Now, delving into some cultural aspects of the pre-flood era, there are little-known elements about this primitive and ancient civilization. One of the most intriguing topics of this period is the question of linguistics. After all, what language was spoken by the people before the flood? The Holy Scriptures do not explicitly mention which language was used at that time. However, we know that before the construction of the Tower of Babel, the linguistic diversity we know today did not exist. According to some interpretations, the original language given to Adam was the so-called Adamic language, also referred to in the New Testament as the language of angels. This sacred language would have been used by the first human beings to communicate with each other and with God himself. However, this language was taken away from humanity during the event at Babel, when God confused the languages of men, scattering them across the earth. From that moment on, the various languages we know today emerged, and the Adamic language was never restored to humanity, possibly because it was no longer worthy of speaking it. Thus, the original language of the first men remains shrouded in mystery, being a subject of speculation and theological studies over the centuries. Many people argue that Hebrew or even Aramaic could be the original language of humanity, but there is no biblical record, either in the Old or New Testament, that supports this theory. The truth is that the Adamic language no longer exists today. What has been preserved are the languages that emerged after the Babel event, when God confused the languages and scattered the peoples. Thus, the nations descended from Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, began to speak the languages that would shape the post-flood world. Another little-known aspect of the pre-flood era is the remarkable longevity of human beings at that time. Unlike today, where life expectancy hovers around 100 years, and even then often accompanied by illnesses and physical decline, back then, it was common for people to live for centuries, maintaining strength and vigor for much of their lives. Biblical records indicate that some individuals reached extraordinary ages. Methuselah, the son of Enoch, is mentioned as having lived 969 years, making him the longest-lived man cited in the scriptures. Thus, the population of that time was accustomed to a life expectancy that frequently exceeded 900 years, something unimaginable today. This exceptional robustness and resilience demonstrate how the pre-flood world was significantly different from the reality we know. In the book of Genesis, chapter 6, it is reported that there was profound corruption among humanity involving both spiritual and material aspects. According to the biblical account and other ancient traditions, certain fallen angels, who would later be identified as demons, are said to have materialized in human form and engaged with the women of that time. From this union, descendants were born who represented a great distortion in the natural order of creation. Furthermore, these corrupted celestial beings, by interacting directly with humans, transmitted hidden knowledge that had previously been unknown to humanity. This contact was a determining factor in the increase of moral and spiritual corruption in pre-flood civilization. Sources such as apocryphal Jewish books, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and writings like the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch state that these fallen angels taught forbidden practices, including magic, sorcery, and various forms of occultism. Many of these secret arts have been preserved over the centuries, while others have been lost over time. In addition to esoteric knowledge, these entities are also said to have taught humanity about warfare and the manufacture of weapons, introducing the use of swords, spears, bows, and armor. According to these traditions, this period was marked by great chaos, with violence and corruption spreading rapidly across the earth. The destructive influence of these beings was so intense that it directly contributed to divine judgment, resulting in the great flood that swept across the earth. Thus, the pre-flood world became a scene of disorder and transgression, leading God to decree its destruction to restore order and purity to creation. When the fallen angels united with human women, they imparted to them occult knowledge that had previously been exclusive to them. As a consequence, these women became sorceresses, witches, necromancers, seers, mediums, and practitioners of mystical arts. With this forbidden knowledge, they began committing increasing transgressions and sins in the eyes of God. The Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain ancient versions of the Old Testament, report in chapter 8 of the Book of Enoch that Azazel taught men the art of forging swords, knives, shields, and armor, as well as the crafting of mirrors, bracelets, and ornaments. He also revealed the use of cosmetics and the technique for enhancing eyebrows, along with the selection and application of precious stones and dyes, thus altering the world. As a result, wickedness increased, fornication multiplied, and men corrupted their ways. Amazarach taught spells and the manipulation of magical roots. Armors revealed how to break enchantments. Barca-al instructed on the observation of celestial bodies, while Akabel taught the interpretation of omens. Tamriel transmitted knowledge of astronomy, and Asaradel revealed the movements of the moon. In light of this, men now ruined cried out, and their voices reached the heavens. With this vast knowledge of magic, enchantments, and advanced technologies, the men of that time erected grand structures and built magnificent civilizations. However, these societies were destroyed by the flood, a consequence of their corruption and deviation from divine decrees. Furthermore, by uniting with human women, the fallen angels bore children with them. These offspring became known as the ancient Nephilim, who were essentially the giants of the earth. They were extraordinarily tall, strong, and feared, widely mentioned in Jewish traditions as monstrous figures. According to these accounts, many of the Nephilim practiced magic and, in some cases, even cannibalism. There are also records indicating the existence of a war between different races of giants that inhabited the earth at the time. According to some traditions, this war was instigated by the angel Gabriel, making this episode one of the most enigmatic and controversial within these narratives. The giants represented a fusion between God's original creation and a modification brought about by the fallen angels. These celestial beings, upon taking human form, something that, according to ancient beliefs, all angels were capable of, materialized as men, united with women, and gave birth to these extraordinary beings. The Bible mentions that some of these giants reached an astonishing height of 16 feet. It was precisely during this period that the prophet Enoch announced the following prophecy. It was about these that Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied saying, "Behold, the Lord comes with thousands and thousands of his holy ones." Jude 1, Enoch 2. The purpose of this coming is to execute judgment upon all, and to convict the ungodly of their evil deeds and the insolent words that unbelieving sinners have spoken against him. Jude 1:15, Enoch 2. Beyond the ancient giants known as the Nephilim, the animals that existed before the flood were also extremely powerful. Some of these creatures no longer exist, and if any remain, they may be hidden in the depths of the oceans. One such being is Leviathan, frequently described as a gigantic aquatic reptile. In some interpretations, he is associated with a colossal dragon capable of breathing fire with scales as resistant as metal. The description of this creature in the book of Job is both astonishing and fearsome. The Bible also mentions the existence of other giant reptiles, which today are known as dinosaurs. All these events took place before Noah's flood. According to ancient Jewish traditions, it is believed that from the days of Jared, the fallen angels came to earth and caused great disturbance among humans. From that time until the flood, approximately 1,200 years passed, a period of intense tribulation on earth, marked by the presence of fallen angels, giants, practices of witchcraft and sorcery, and ancient civilizations possessing enigmatic and unsettling knowledge. Thank you to everyone who has followed along. This is the story that precedes the Great Flood, filled with remarkable events. Don't forget to leave a like and share this video with those who also wish to deepen their understanding of the Scriptures. May God bless you all and see you soon.